Hello everyone. Today I will continue sharing with you the story of the single mother, Diệu Hân. I hope that while watching this video, you will feel relaxed, warm, and find a bit of empathy in every small detail of the story. After the hardships and exhausting days, thanks to Tana's quiet care and wholehearted support, Hân gradually regained her memory. The memories did not return all at once, but gently, like breezes drifting by, piecing themselves together bit by bit into a complete picture. At first, they were just faint images. Her son's laughter, the glimpse of a familiar figure. Then, little by little, she began to recall moments both painful and joyful. Most importantly, throughout that process, she felt more deeply the affection of Tan, the man who quietly stayed by her side, protecting her, never leaving her behind. Every day, the two of them nurtured life together. In the mornings, Tan would wake up early, prepare a few gardening tools, and wait for Hân to step out onto the porch. They didn't need many words. Just a look, a smile was enough to understand each other. Together, they pulled weeds, tilled the soil, and planted new rows of green vegetables. Whenever Hân's hands got dirty with soil, Tan would gently hand her a towel. These small gestures became the invisible thread binding them closer with each passing day. By the afternoon, when the sunlight grew softer, they would sit and rest on the wooden bench beneath the garden tree. Hân liked to share little stories about Tom, her young son, while Tan listened attentively, occasionally smiling. That simple atmosphere gave Hân a sense of peace she thought she had long lost. One evening, as the sunset bathed the yard in soft orange light, Tan gathered his courage and confessed his feelings. He didn't use fancy words or distant promises. He simply said, "Hân, I want to be by your side, to care for Tom with you, and to walk with you through all the days ahead. Nothing grand, just peace and sincerity. Will that be enough?" That plain-spoken confession left Hân speechless. She looked at Tan and saw in his eyes determination and deep affection, something she had long felt but never dared to believe. Gently she nodded, a smile forming at the corner of her lips. From then on, Hân and Tan came together quietly, without noise, without pretense. Their love was not about dazzling parties or extravagant trips, but about days spent gardening side by side, cooking simple meals, or sitting next to Tom, listening to his cheerful giggles. In the midst of life's turbulence, they chose simplicity. They chose a small home filled with love, sharing, and the belief that together they could overcome any hardship. More than anything, Hân knew that after all the storms, she had found a safe haven, not only for herself, but also for little Tom, who always needed a protective embrace. After the struggles, life gradually settled for Hân, Tan, and Tom. Each morning, Tom's giggles rang out like music greeting the new day. The little boy ran into the garden, his tiny feet leaving prints on the damp earth after the night's rain. Hân followed behind, wearing her conical hat, carefully pulling weeds while keeping an eye on him. Tan busied himself turning the soil, sometimes lifting Tom high into the air, making him laugh gleefully. Family meals became the most precious moments of the day. No lavish dishes, just vegetable soup from the garden, a fragrant plate of braised fish, and steaming bowls of white rice. Hân ladled soup for her son, smiling as she watched Tan patiently dip one pieces of fish to place into Tom's bowl. Simple scenes, yet full of love. In the evenings, when Tom was fast asleep in his little bed, Hân and Tan often sat outside on the porch. Moonlight bathed the garden, crickets chirped, and the faint fragrance of jasmine lingered in the air. Hân spoke of her worries and struggles as a single mother. Tan listened quietly, never interrupting, just gently holding her hand as if to say, "I'm here. You're not alone anymore." On stormy days, when the roof rattled under heavy winds, Tom would cling to his mother in fear. Tan immediately went around checking doors, fastening the coverings, then returned to embrace both mother and child in his strong arms. In those moments, Hân realized she had not only found a companion, but a true pillar of safety for herself and her son. Their love did not need noise nor grand gestures. It grew out of humble meals, children's laughter, afternoons watering the garden, and quiet nights sitting together watching their child sleep. All of this formed a little family, where happiness came from simplicity, and love meant being there, every single day. Little Tom grew increasingly attached to Uncle Ton. Every afternoon, when Ton returned from working in the garden, Tom would rush over, hugging his legs tightly, chirping and demanding to be lifted high into the air so he could fly like a little bird. His crisp laughter echoed across the garden, filling the space with warmth and joy. From a distance, Han watched silently, her eyes shining with quiet happiness. As long as she saw her son laughing, healthy and carefree, all her worries seemed to melt away. Time passed, and soon it was nearly time for Tom to start school. Both Han and Ton were excited to prepare for this new chapter in his life. One weekend morning, the three of them went to the market together, choosing brand new clothes, a small pair of shoes that fit perfectly, and a neat little backpack. Tom clung to Ton, insisting that he be the one to choose, while Han smiled at the tender scene, her heart swelling with a peace she could hardly describe. On Tom's first day of school, the three held hands as they walked down the little sunlit path. Tom chattered away, his eyes sparkling with excitement. But when they arrived at the school gate, he hesitated, clinging tightly to his mother's hand. Ton bent down, gently ruffled his hair, and softly said, "Be brave, son. Your mom and I are right here, always watching over you." Encouraged by those words, Tom stepped into the classroom. Standing beside Ton, Han's heart was stirred with emotion. At that moment, she realized her greatest wish was truly simple. For her child to smile every day, to grow up surrounded by love, and to have a man like Ton walking alongside them. That afternoon, when the school bell rang, the playground burst into life. Groups of children poured out of their classrooms, their laughter ringing out as sandals slapped against the tiles. Among them was little Tom, running with sweat-dampened hair and flushed cheeks, his eyes shining brightly with joy. Spotting his mother and Uncle Ton at the gate, he shouted excitedly and darted into Han's arms, clinging to her neck as if afraid to let go. "Mom, today the teacher let us draw. I drew a big tree with birds and flowers. She even said mine was the best in class," he announced proudly, his voice chirping like a songbird. Listening to his excitement, Han bent down to wipe the sweat from his face, her heart overflowing with emotion. Ton, too, couldn't hide his pride. He gently stroked Tom's hair, his eyes full of tenderness. "That's amazing. Tomorrow I'll buy you some new colors, so you can make even more beautiful drawings." At this, Tom beamed, his eyes curving like crescent moons. Holding Tana's hand, he continued excitedly telling stories about his new class. Han walked silently beside them, smiling softly. In that moment, she realized happiness could be this simple. Seeing her son laugh, and having someone she trusted sharing every small moment with her. On the way home, Tom chattered endlessly. He talked about his kind teacher, his new friends, the big blackboard, and the white chalk. His enthusiasm made both Han and Ton laugh out loud. Every so often, Ton glanced at Han, his eyes seeming to say, "We've done it. He's truly happy." Back at home, Tom wasn't ready to stop. He grabbed his paper and crayons and eagerly redrew his tree, now bursting with colorful flowers. "The teacher said my picture had the most colors, Mom, Uncle," he exclaimed proudly. Ton sat down beside him, patiently guiding him on how to color more evenly. Han watched from nearby, her heart swelling with the peace she had long yearned for. That evening, after soothing Tom to sleep in his cozy bed, Han stepped out onto the porch. Moonlight spilled over the garden, crickets chirped, and the earthy scent of grass after rain filled the air with stillness. She stood quietly, gazing up at the starry sky, silently thanking fate for giving her these moments back. Ton came to her side. He said nothing, just gently took her hand in his. His hand was warm and steady, as if to say, I will always be here with you and our son." In that moment, Han's eyes stung with tears. No grand promises were needed, no lavish dreams. Just having a sincere man by her side, and watching her son grow up each day in laughter, that was more than enough. This little family, though simple, was her entire world. Today, just like every other day, Han woke up at dawn. The pale morning light filtered faintly across the porch as she quietly entered the kitchen, her hands swiftly preparing breakfast. A steaming bowl of fragrant porridge for little Tom, slices of golden toasted bread, and a simple yet nourishing sunny-side-up egg for Tan. Watching her loved ones enjoy breakfast together filled her with a quiet sense of fulfillment. When everything was done, she rolled up her sleeves, ready to tend to the young vegetable beds in the garden. These days, Han often felt her life was complete. A warm home, the laughter of a child, and a man who always stayed by her side. Yet, unlike usual, today her body suddenly felt heavy, strangely weary. After pulling only a few weeds, her vision blurred, her ears rang, and her heartbeat raced wildly. She tried to steady herself, but a wave of dizziness struck, darkness engulfing her sight. In an instant, Han collapsed onto the damp soil, her hair falling across her pale face. From a distance, Tan saw her and froze in horror. He dropped his tools and rushed over, gathering her into his arms. "Hun, what's happening to you?" His voice trembled. Without another thought, he carried her, his heart pounding, fear and worry flooding him. Nearby, little Tom burst into tears, his eyes red, running frantically after them, crying out, "Mom, don't leave me." On the way to the clinic, Tan clutched Han tightly as he ran, as though afraid she would vanish if he let go. His body was drenched in sweat, not only from exertion, but from the overwhelming fear coursing through him. At the small clinic, the doctor immediately examined her. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic, the metallic clink of instruments filling the silence. Tan stood by her side, gripping her hand tightly, his eyes never more strained. Little Tom clung to his uncle, still sniffling in fear. After a while, the doctor smiled gently and said clearly, "Congratulations to your family, Han is expecting a baby." In that moment, time seemed to stop. Tan stood stunned, eyes widening in disbelief. Then within seconds, joy burst forth. He bent down, squeezing Han's cold hand tightly, a radiant smile breaking across his sweat-soaked face. The heavy burden of fear lifted, replaced by a warmth and hope that spread through his chest. Though still weak and pale, Han's eyes shone brightly as she looked at Tan. Tears welled up, not from sorrow or fear, but from overwhelming happiness. She whispered faintly, "Tan, I never expected this." Tan clasped her hand even tighter, his gaze burning as if to say, "Don't worry, I'll always be here. You're no longer alone." Little Tom, after a moment of confusion, suddenly exclaimed with joy, "Mom, am I going to have a sibling? I'll play with the baby. I'll carry the baby. I promise I'll be good, so don't worry, Mom." Those innocent words made both Han and Tan laugh through their tears. The small clinic room filled with joy, their laughter mingling with sobs of happiness. Quietly, Tan bent down and kissed the back of Han's hand, silently thanking fate for granting them such a miracle. Their little family was now about to welcome another angel, and happiness felt more complete than ever before. From the moment he learned Han was pregnant, Tan seemed to transform. More careful, more thoughtful, more responsible. He no longer allowed Han to touch any heavy chores. Gardening, cleaning, even small household tasks he took upon himself. All he wanted was for Han to rest, read, or simply stroll in the garden, breathing in the fresh air. Every morning before Han awoke, Tan quietly prepared meals in the kitchen. He cooked nourishing dishes tailored to her taste and beneficial for the baby. He even researched meal plans and consulted doctors to ensure every spoonful of porridge and every glass of milk carried his deepest care. Whenever Han tried to help with small tasks, Tan would gently but firmly stop her. "No, you just need to rest. Let me handle this. At such times Han could only smile at him, her heart swelling with emotion she could hardly put into words, happiness, gratitude, and wonder. She had never imagined, not even in her dreams, that she would be loved and cared for so tenderly. After so many lonely years of bearing everything alone, she now had a man who not only loved her, but was willing to sacrifice and shoulder every responsibility for her sake. Little Tom also changed in his own way. Hearing Ton say, "Mom needs to rest," he imitated him. He stopped bothering her, stopped running noisily around the house. Sometimes, he even fetched a chair for her, or handed her a glass of water, innocently saying, "Drink this, Mom. You need to be healthy so the baby in your tummy will be healthy too." Those simple moments often brought tears to Han's eyes. But these were no longer tears of loneliness or hardship, they were tears of joy. She knew now that this little family was truly a miracle, the safe haven she had once longed for with all her heart. One peaceful afternoon, as the sun sank behind the mountains and golden light bathed the garden, Han sat back on a wicker chair by the porch. In her hands was a small book about pregnancy care that Ton had bought, and beside her sat a warm glass of milk he had just prepared. Little Tom was nearby, busy playing with his wooden toy cars on the tiled floor. Suddenly Han flinched. She felt a gentle movement inside her belly, like a tiny touch from within. First she thought she was mistaken, but just seconds later, the feeling returned, clearer and more vivid. Her heart raced and a radiant smile trembled on her lips. "Tom, come here quick," she called out, her voice choked with emotion. Ton, who was watering plants in the garden, rushed over at her urgent call. Han grabbed his hand and placed it on her belly, her eyes shimmering with tears. "Do you feel that? The baby, our child, is moving." Ton fell silent, listening with his whole heart. Then suddenly he froze, eyes wide with astonishment as he felt a tiny kick from within. His heart swelled, joy bursting through him like never before. He laughed, his face glowing, and bent down to whisper, "Hello, little one. Daddy's here. You're amazing." Little Tom ran over, his eyes sparkling, his tiny hand pressing against his mother's belly. When he felt the kick, he squealed with delight. "Mom, the baby just said hi to me. The baby knows I'm the big brother already." All three of them laughed, their voices echoing in the quiet afternoon, mingling with the rustling leaves and the birds calling overhead. It was a simple yet sacred moment, marking a new milestone in their family's journey. Han leaned her head against Tana's shoulder, tears rolling down her cheeks. She whispered, "With you, with Tom, and now with the baby, I feel truly blessed." Ton tightened his arm around her shoulders, silently vowing to protect and love her, along with their two little angels, with all his heart. From the day he first felt the baby's kick, little Tom grew more excited than ever. Every day he would proudly tell everyone, "I'm going to be a big brother soon," his voice brimming with pride. One morning Han was washing some newborn clothes that Ton had bought at the town market. Seeing the tiny shirts and socks small enough to fit in his palm, Tom ran over and declared, "Mom, let me fold them. I'll make them neat so the baby will have clothes to wear right away." His little hands fumbled awkwardly, but after much effort he managed to fold one shirt. His eyes sparkled with joy. Ton couldn't help but laugh, gently patting his head. "Well done. You really are the baby's big brother." Not only that, every night before bed, Tom would press his ear against his mother's belly and whisper, "Good night, baby. Tomorrow I'll tell you a story." Sometimes he even tried to sing lullabies, his words clumsy and offbeat, but to Han it was heartwarmingly sweet. She stroked his hair, touched by the innocent love he already held for his unborn sibling. One afternoon Tom eagerly drew a picture with trees, flowers, and three people holding hands. In the middle, he added a tiny baby, then proudly held it up to his mother. "Mom, this is our family. When the baby is born, there'll be 4 of us, not just 3. Han looked at the clumsy drawing, her heart tightening with emotion. All her weariness seemed to vanish, leaving only overflowing happiness. She kissed Tom's forehead, whispering through tears, "You truly are my greatest pride." Beside them, Tom quietly watched it all, his heart swelling with deep emotion. He knew that a new chapter of their lives was beginning, one filled with love, companionship, and the pure affection of children.
Hello mọi người, lại là mình đây. Rất vui được gặp lại mọi người trong video của mình nha. Đây là video 1 phút cuối cùng mà mình muốn chia sẻ cùng với mọi người. Và hy vọng rằng những chia sẻ của mình sẽ giúp mọi người hiểu hơn về kênh của mình. Hiện tại thì kênh của mình đang làm video về những người mẹ đơn thân. Và đặc biệt là câu chuyện mình muốn gửi đến mọi người, đó là câu chuyện của người mẹ đơn thân Diệu Hân. Hành trình của người mẹ đơn thân Diệu Hân cũng đã khá dài. Diệu Hân cũng đã phải trải qua khá nhiều những khó khăn và gian khổ. Và cũng đã gặp được rất là nhiều những người bạn tốt giúp đỡ Diệu Hân. Sắp tới thì Hân sẽ phải đối mặt với những khó khăn và thử thách nào thì mời mọi người cùng đón xem những video tiếp theo của kênh của mình. Rất mong được sự ủng hộ của mọi người. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại mọi người nha.